You've been taught that money comes from hard work, from grinding, from sacrifice, and yet you've watched people who work half as hard attract twice as much. You've seen abundance flow to those who seem to do less, while you do more and still feel stuck. The truth? Money isn't responding to your effort. It's responding to your frequency. This isn't about wishing your way to wealth or pretending you're rich when you're not. This is about understanding something most people never grasp. Money is energy, and energy doesn't flow toward force. It flows toward alignment. Think about the last time you desperately needed money. Maybe rent was due. Maybe an unexpected expense hit. Maybe you just wanted to feel secure for once. What did you do? You probably tightened your grip. You worked harder. You stressed more. You checked your bank account obsessively, as if looking at the number enough times would change it. And the more you gripped, the more it slipped away. Not because the universe is cruel, but because you were operating from a frequency that repels what you're trying to attract. Desperation has a vibration, so does lack, so does fear, and money, like all energy, moves away from those frequencies. Not because it's punishing you, but because that's how energy works. You can't attract light by focusing on darkness. You can't call in abundance by marinating in scarcity. Most of us were raised with a specific relationship to money. We watched our parents stress about it. We heard the phrase, "Money doesn't grow on trees," more times than we can count. We absorbed the belief that there's never enough, that you have to fight for every dollar, that wealthy people are either lucky or morally compromised. We learned that money is hard, that it's scarce, that wanting it makes you shallow, and that having it makes you a target. These aren't just beliefs, they're frequencies, and if you're broadcasting them, you're tuned to a station that doesn't play abundance. Here's what most people don't realize. Your bank account is a mirror. It's not reflecting your worth. It's not even reflecting your work ethic. It's reflecting your internal frequency around money. The thoughts you think when no one's watching, the stories you tell yourself about why you can't have what you want, the subtle resentment you feel when someone else wins, the shame you carry about past financial mistakes, the fear that whispers, "What if I lose it all?" All of that is energy. And all of that is being broadcast into the field around you, shaping what comes back. Now, before you think this is about toxic positivity or pretending everything is fine when it's not, let me be clear, this isn't about faking it. It's about frequency shifting. There's a difference. Faking it is lying to yourself. Frequency shifting is becoming a match for what you want before it arrives. It's not about denying your current reality. It's about not letting your current reality dictate your frequency. Think of it this way. Imagine you're a radio. Right now, you're tuned to a station called Scarcity FM. All day, every day, it plays the same songs. There's never enough. Money is hard. I can't afford that. Rich people are greedy. I always struggle. And because that's the station you're tuned to, that's the reality you experience. Not because the universe is against you, but because you're a match for that frequency. But here's the thing. There's another station. It's called Abundance FM, and it's playing a completely different set of songs. Money flows easily. I am supported. Opportunities find me. Wealth is natural. I receive with ease. That station exists right now, in this moment. But you won't hear it until you change the dial. And changing the dial doesn't require you to have money first. It requires you to shift your relationship with it, to stop seeing it as the enemy and start seeing it as energy that wants to flow, to stop gripping and start allowing, to stop pushing and start magnetizing. If this message resonates with you, subscribe to the channel and join a community of awakened souls walking the same journey of spiritual alignment. Let me tell you something that might challenge everything you've been taught. Money wants to come to you, not because you're special, but because energy seeks flow, not stagnation. Money is meant to circulate. That's why it's called currency. It's current. It's meant to move. and it moves most freely toward those who don't block it with fear, guilt, shame, or scarcity consciousness. Think about water for a moment. Water doesn't flow uphill. It doesn't force its way through concrete. It finds the path of least resistance. It moves where there's openness, where there's space, where there's flow. Money works the same way. It doesn't force its way into your life. It flows toward openness, toward receptivity, toward those who believe it belongs to them. And here's where it gets interesting. You can't fake that belief. You can say affirmations all day, but if underneath them is a vibration of, "I don't really believe this," the universe responds to the vibration, not the words. This is why so many people try manifestation techniques and feel like they don't work. They're speaking abundance, but vibrating lack. They're saying, "I am wealthy," while thinking, "When will this finally work?" They're affirming prosperity while resenting those who have it. The shift happens when you stop performing and start embodying. When you stop trying to convince the universe and start becoming the person who already has what you want. Not in a fake, forced way, but in a genuine, cellular way. When you start asking yourself, how would someone who is financially abundant think about this decision? How would they feel in this moment? What energy would they bring to this conversation? It's not about pretending you have money you don't have. It's about stepping into the frequency of someone who knows money is always available, who trusts the flow, who doesn't panic when the bank account dips because they know it's temporary, who doesn't hoard because they know more is always coming, who doesn't guilt-trip themselves for spending because they understand that circulation is part of the cycle. Here's a truth that might sting at first. If you resent wealthy people, you will never become one. If you vilify money, it will avoid you. If you believe that having more means someone else has less, you will always unconsciously sabotage your own abundance because your subconscious won't let you become something you judge. This is why shadow work is so critical in financial transformation. You have to look at the beliefs you're carrying that you didn't even know were there. The belief that money makes people greedy. The belief that spiritual people shouldn't care about money. The belief that if you have wealth, you're taking it from someone who needs it more. The belief that you don't deserve it because of mistakes you made in the past. These beliefs are invisible chains, and until you see them, you'll keep wondering why nothing changes no matter how hard you work. But when you start to unravel them, when you start to see money not as the root of evil, but as a tool for expansion, when you start to release the shame and guilt and fear, something shifts. The grip loosens, the desperation fades, and in that space, flow becomes possible. One of the most powerful shifts you can make is to stop seeing money as something you chase and start seeing it as something you allow. Chasing implies it's running from you. Allowing implies it's already seeking you, and your job is simply to become available. To remove the blocks, to stop being a closed door and start being an open window. And how do you become available? You start by paying attention to your thoughts, not judging them, just noticing them. Every time you think, "I can't afford that," pause. Not to shame yourself, but to recognize the frequency you just broadcast. Then consciously shift it, not to "I can afford that" if it's not true, but to something like, "I'm learning to call in the resources I need." That's a frequency shift. It's subtle, but it's powerful. You start by changing how you speak about money. Stop saying "I'm broke." Stop joking about being poor. Stop bonding with others over financial struggle. Words are spells, literally. The things you repeat become the reality you experience. If you constantly affirm lack, lack will constantly affirm itself in your life. You start by practicing gratitude for what you have, not in a spiritual bypassing way where you ignore your struggles, but in a genuine way where you acknowledge that even in this moment, there is flow. You have a device to watch this on. You have access to information. You have abilities, skills, opportunities that others would consider wealth. When you start to see the abundance that already exists, you tune into the frequency of more. To celebrate your arrival, we've prepared a gift, a guide to help you navigate your inner transitions with clarity and elegance. Alignment. 7 Phases of Consciousness Awakening. Download your copy from the link in the description. You start by giving, not from depletion, but from overflow, even if it's small, even if it's just $1 to someone who needs it more. Because giving breaks the scarcity loop. It signals to your subconscious, I have enough to share. And that signal shifts everything. You start by receiving without guilt. This is a big one. So many people block their own abundance because they feel guilty when they receive. Someone offers to pay for dinner and they refuse. Someone gives them a compliment and they deflect. Someone offers them an opportunity and they downplay their worthiness. If you can't receive a compliment, how will you receive $1 million? The universe is always testing your capacity to receive in small ways before it sends the big things. You start by trusting the timing. This might be the hardest part, because the mind wants to know when and how and through what channel the money will come. But energy doesn't work on your timeline. It works on alignment, and sometimes the delay isn't a denial, it's a redirection. Sometimes what you think you need isn't what you actually need, and the universe, in its infinite intelligence, is orchestrating something better. But you won't see it if you're too busy forcing your way. There's a concept in Taoism called Wu Wei. It means effortless action. It doesn't mean doing nothing. It means acting in harmony with the natural flow of things rather than against it. It means planting the seed, watering it, giving it sunlight, and then trusting the process instead of digging it up every day to check if it's growing. Most people dig up their seeds. They plant the intention for abundance and then immediately start checking their bank account, wondering why it hasn't appeared yet. They panic, they doubt, they switch strategies every 3 days, and in doing so, they disrupt the process. They move from frequency to frequency so quickly that nothing has time to take root. Abundance requires consistency, not in action alone, but in frequency. You have to hold the vibration long enough for it to materialize, and that requires trust. Deep, unwavering trust that what you're calling in is already on its way, that the universe isn't withholding from you, that you're not being punished or overlooked or forgotten, that your moment is coming and your job is simply to stay aligned until it does. Here's what happens when you make this shift, when you stop forcing and start flowing, when you release the grip and open your hands, life begins to reorganize itself around your new frequency. Opportunities you didn't see before suddenly appear. People reach out with offers. Ideas drop into your mind at random moments. Doors open in ways you couldn't have orchestrated. Not because you got lucky, but because you became a match. You'll notice synchronicities, numbers repeating, conversations that align perfectly with what you were just thinking about. Resources showing up exactly when you need them. These aren't coincidences. They're confirmations. The universe showing you that you're on the right frequency, that you're aligned, that the flow has begun. And as the flow begins, your relationship with money transforms. You stop seeing it as something scarce and start seeing it as something infinite. You stop gripping it in fear and start circulating it with trust. You stop measuring your worth by your bank account and start recognizing that your worth was never tied to a number in the first place. You were always valuable. The money was just waiting for you to believe it. You'll also notice that the hustle feels different. It's no longer frantic. It's no longer driven by fear of not having enough. It becomes inspired action. The kind of work that doesn't drain you because it's aligned. The kind of effort that feels more like play because you're doing it from overflow, not depletion. You're no longer working to survive. You're working to create, and that shift in energy changes everything. People will start to notice something different about you. They won't be able to name it, but they'll feel it. You'll carry a calm that wasn't there before, a confidence that doesn't come from arrogance, but from deep trust. You'll stop talking about what you don't have and start embodying what you're becoming. And that energy, that frequency, is magnetic. It draws in not just money, but opportunities, connections, collaborations, ideas that you couldn't have accessed from the old frequency. This is the transformation. This is what happens when you stop seeing money as the goal and start seeing it as the byproduct of alignment, the byproduct of self-worth, the byproduct of trust. When you shift your relationship with money from fear to flow, from scarcity to sufficiency, from chasing to allowing, everything changes. Not because you tricked the universe, but because you finally became available for what was always trying to reach you. So here's the question. What frequency are you broadcasting right now? In this moment, as you listen to these words, what's the story you're telling yourself about money? Is it a story of struggle, of lack, of unworthiness? Or is it a story of flow, of trust, of inevitable abundance? Because whatever story you're telling is the reality you're creating. And if you don't like the story, you have the power to change it. Not by denying your circumstances, but by refusing to let your circumstances define your frequency. By deciding right here, right now, that you are available for more, that you are a match for abundance, that money is energy, and energy flows where it's welcomed. You don't need to have it all figured out. You don't need a detailed plan. You don't need to know the how. You just need to shift the frequency and trust that the path will reveal itself. Step by step, synchronicity by synchronicity, opportunity by opportunity. The abundance you're seeking isn't somewhere out there waiting for you to be good enough, work hard enough, or deserve it enough. It's already here, in this moment, in the field around you, waiting for you to tune in, waiting for you to stop resisting and start receiving, waiting for you to remember that you were never separate from it in the first place. Money is energy, and you are energy. When you align the two, when you become a conscious channel rather than a desperate seeker, the flow becomes inevitable. Not because you forced it, but because you allowed it. Not because you earned it, but because you embodied it. So take a breath, let go of the grip, trust the process. Know that what's meant for you is already making its way to you. And as you shift your frequency, watch how your reality shifts with it. Watch how the universe conspires in your favor. Watch how abundance becomes not something you chase, but something you are. If this resonated with you, if something inside you shifted as you listened, do me a favor. Not for the algorithm, but for your own alignment. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, share it with someone who needs to hear this message. Because the more you circulate this energy, the more it circulates back to you. That's how frequency works. That's how energy flows. And that's how you step into the abundance that's been waiting for you all along. The cipher of inner stillness is a poetic journey through the hidden geometry of peace. Blending mystical philosophy, Jungian psychology, and cosmic symbolism, this ebook reveals that silence is not the absence of life. It is its source. Discover this and other codices that transform the way you see the universe through the link in the description.